We're back, and for today's video, I want to talk about snakes. Now, you're probably wondering, like, hey, this is a dragon channel, why aren't you talking about dragon? I'm not talking about dragons right now because snakes... snakes aren't dragons, but dragons are snakes. And here's what I mean, like, I've talked about before the dinosaur bones. For sure I've talked about that before. If I haven't ignored this, and I will eventually. I've talked about the dinosaur bones, and how I don't believe the dinosaur bones are what caused people to know the myth of dragons. I think the myth of dragons started out as embellishments of snakes, and I get this a lot where people are like, oh, this dragon you reference isn't really a dragon, it's a snake. It's like, there's not a whole lot of difference. The further back you go in a myth, pretty much any mythical dragon is a snake, and any mythical snake is a dragon. That's just kind of how it worked. So, you can see evidence of this in two ways. The farther back you go, the more serpentine dragons become. They either are snakes, creatures that have snakes growing out of them. If they're not fully snake, they're at least like serpentine in shape. This is very common. And you'll also see associations between snakes and like dragons being similar. Like a lot of times you'll see them both associated with water, associated both with venom. Which all of this goes to suggest that dragons and snakes were really considered different things. A dragon was just like a bigger, scarier snake than usual. And I have it pulled up because I made a post on my blog about which, oh, one thing I want to mention, in medieval bestiaries, you'll a lot of times see snakes depicted just as dragons. Like, there's a post I made on my blog a while back, and I kept making because it amused me so much, where there's a picture of a snake from a bestiary, drawn basically as a wyvern, has like the typical wyvern dog head of bestiaries, like the fox feathered wings, like the dog feet paws, like the dog legs, and under it, it says, a typical snake drawn with legs and wings. It's like, oh yeah, typical snake. You know those winged leg snakes. So it just amused me because, like, that's just how people thought snakes looked. Like, apparently no one knew what the fuck a snake was in medieval Europe. So, there's also in myths, a lot of times you'll see myths where dragons start out as snakes and then grow to be dragons. You see this in the East with the Chinese dragons, which live about 500 years as a water serpent before eventually becoming more draconic as time goes on. In Korea, there's the Umugi, which are described basically as giant pythons that can become dragons if they catch, like, this magic thing that falls from heaven called the Yuiju. Dragon Wars mentions that. The movie Dragon Wars. It's actually kind of interesting. It mentions a Korean dragon and the Umugi. I think it was a Korean-made movie, so that makes sense. The Gwibber in Wales, I think that's where it's from, is a dragon that is born if an adder drinks, like, breast milk, I think. Dragons and milk is another thing. I'll need to make a video on that, too. It's weird. It doesn't happen super often, but it happens enough where I'm kind of just like, what is going on? Why do people think dragons like milk? The Naga of India were considered basically just the same thing as their cobras. Naga meant cobra, and it could mean either just the generic cobra, or the divine cobras with multiple heads that were currently dragons, and got associated with dragons as they moved to other countries. Which brings me to the next thing is, in a lot of places, the word for dragon and the word for snake are either the same or share the same word. So, to start, the word dragon itself comes from like a French word, which is basically dragon, which in turn comes from Latin Draco, which itself comes from the Greek Drakon, and Draco and Drakon both pretty much just mean giant serpent. And, like I said, dragons in Greece are usually kind of cool, but they usually have snake-like aspects in some way. The word python, or giant snakes, pythons, get their names from another Greek dragon, whose name was either Pytho or Python. I think is typically depicted as a female dragon that was slain by Apollo because it was tormenting Apollo's mother while she was pregnant with him. Slavic dragons, which I mentioned in my Hydra video, the Zime, Simaj, however you want to spell that name. It varies from country to country. These are the masculine word. These dragons are named after the masculine word for snake. Babylon, the Masashu, or the Sirash. Their name seems to be derived probably from words meaning reddish snake or fierce snake. Back in English, the term for dragon was originally worm. W-Y-R-M, and while we don't use this for snakes today, we do use the term worm for very serpentine-shaped creatures. I mentioned the Naga. The 8-headed dragon of Japan I mentioned back in my Hydra video, the Yamata no Arachi. Its name translates as 8-branched giant snake. Over in America, you see the horned serpents, which are very snake-like dragons, and their names, depending on which language you're speaking, usually means great snake. Quetzalcoatl's name means Quetzal snake. And serpent itself, which we usually only refer to snakes now, eventually, in the past, meant every reptile. Like, if you pick up, like, a bestiary, the section on serpents includes all reptiles, all amphibians, and some invertebrates. Serpent basically meant, like, any general creepy crawly. So, that's kind of it for that video. It's just kind of a audio version of that post, and I'll link that post in the description, or try to remember to link that post in the description. So, like, comment, subscribe, and let me know.